Hey everybody, this is Matt. I wanted to do a quick little, not really unboxing video, more a take a look through, flip through video. I got this today and it came in a box with some other stuff, so it's not really an unboxing video. Um, this is Swords of the Serpentine from Pelgrane Press. This is a complete sword and sorcery fantasy RPG using an adapted version of the GUMSHOE system. The GUMSHOE system, which is also from Pelgrane Press, is a unique system. It's D6 based, but without a doubt, the thing that it is most known for is it has investigatory skills, which are used to find clues. It's a very mystery, clue finding oriented system, and it does not use tests or random chance for finding clues. The whole ethic behind that is, you find the clues based on your expertise to move the story forward to get to the action, right? This is a big contrast to, say, Call of Cthulhu, for instance, where you would have sort of investigatory skills that are a percentile, and you would make a skill check, and if you failed, what happens now? It's usually some awkward compromise, or where the GM gives you a little more, or you have to make up new ways to investigate so you can roll again, or the GM just throws up his hands and says, "Forget it, you got it," or worse, they send you off somewhere else, and they have to think of a way to get that clue back into the game. And GUMSHOE, very smartly and cleverly, I think, said, now, if you're an expert in a field, and that field applies to this particular investigation, you get the big clue. You might have to do some things to get little add-on clues or extra little bits of information, but the big clue that will lead you to the next part of this adventure or mystery, whatever you want to call it, you're going to get that based on your expertise. I think that's really cool. I don't like games where you're just rolling and rolling and rolling, hoping you'll get the thing you need to move the plot forward. That's awkward and fake, and I don't like it. I like a lot of games now are trending towards you get one try, which I prefer to that. Or you get one try, and then you got to tell me a really unique way you're going to try again if you fail. I'm okay with that too. But when it's a mystery and the whole plot can literally stop because you didn't make one skill roll, that's flawed. That's bad. That's old school. And I'm glad games are getting away with that, and GUMSHOE is kind of leading the way. Anyway, Swords of the Serpentine is a fantasy take on that. So it does actually bring in cool things like sorcery and more dynamic combat. One thing with GUMSHOE is it's not about combat at all, the traditional GUMSHOE. So they've made that more interesting here, and they've built a world too, really cool world. So I've been flipping through the PDF for the last week, waiting for this book, and been really enjoying what I'm reading. So I thought I'd flip through this. You and me, we won't get super detailed, but I wanted to share because I'm excited about this, and I'm actually really looking forward to a chance to run this. So let me get the shrink off. Book arrived in very good condition, it would appear, which is nice. All right. So it's a nice, glossy, hardback. It's a great little picture. The world this is set in is Well, your main setting is a city called Eversink, which is sort of a cross between sort of a Venice with some great fantasy cities like Ankh-Morpork from Terry Pratchett or Lankhmar from Fritz Leiber. So think gritty, urban, medieval fantasy, and it's got this wonderful city of canals that's surrounded by swampland and ocean, and it's literally sinking. That's why they call it Eversink. So this is more like political in a lot of ways, or it can be. You could certainly do other things with it. But let's take a look. So this is written by Kevin Culp and Emily Dresner, again from Pelgrane Press. Let's look at the back. Let's look at the teaser. Swords of the Serpentine, a gumshoe role-playing game of sword and sorcery. Swords of the Serpentine is a game of daring heroism, sly politics, and bloody savagery. Set in a fantasy city rife with skullduggery and death, the rules adapt the Gumshoe investigative role-playing system to create a fantasy RPG with a focus on high-action role-playing and investigation inspired by the stories of Fritz Leiber, Terry Pratchett, Mercedes Lackey, Robert E. Howard, and others. I'm realizing there's a hole in my fantasy reading, and this book is showing me the way. I know Mercedes Lackey. I've never read her stuff. I need to read her stuff. If you read any Mercedes Lackey, feel free to comment. Alright, so let's take a look. Open this baby up. First thing, beautiful map. Beautiful map. This is Eversink. So you can see we're sort of surrounded by ocean. And then we've got islands, and running through those islands are canals. It's a big canal structure. The classic gondola, rowing through the water is a thing in this game. So we've got some cool locations: Temple Market, Harbor Approach, Alder Hall, which I believe is where the old rich live, the Foreign District, the Goddess Isle. We'll talk about the Goddess thing. That's really cool. The Tangle, Iron Cross, Sag Harbor, the little key over here. And lots of locations spelled out, but not a ton, right? They want you to kind of build your own world and, detail allies and enemies and, contrasting factions when you do like a session 0 kind of thing. Oh, this is super thick. This is high quality right here. Beautiful sort of watercolor looking look at like you're coming into Eversink. One of the ideas of this is that it's always sinking, right? This island is always sinking. It only really, or these islands are always sinking. It only really exists because of a pact they made with a goddess who has become sort of their goddess of trade. And she rose islands out from the sea and turned what was just like an island that had like a primitive village on it into this sprawling center of trade. So there are other parts of the world, and they do have a chapter on that, but definitely this book is built around the idea of at least some of your time role-playing in Eversink. Alright, so this is a nice... I think back in the day we would have called this like probably a 60-pound gloss finish. I used to work in printing. But it's really nice. So we've got publishers Simon Rogers and Cathriona Tobin. I believe Simon Rogers is the founder of Pelgrane Press. They're cool company. They're based in the UK. They've been around for a little over 20 years, I think. They have Gumshoe and a lot of variants of Gumshoe. So they have like Trail Cthulhu. I think they have a Vampire World one. I don't remember what it's called right now. But they have a lot. And it's neat because each time they're sort of tweaking the Gumshoe system for the theme or the reality of that game, that particular game world. Playtesters and clever advisors. So shout outs to people who helped make this, a ton of folks. I'm imagining this may have been crowdfunded because this list is massive. Got a table of contents, which is big. This is a big book. I was thinking when I got this, I was like, it's been a while since I bought a big, chunky RPG hardback book. And even though they're not really necessary in a lot of parts of the industry, I'm thinking like Free League and such are getting away from that. Going to box sets or like soft cover sets of books, right? Like a player book and a GM book and a world book or that kind of thing, which is great. It's fine, but there's something just stokes my old school heart to get a big chunky book and sit down with like a coffee and just start going through it. All right, chapter 1, the basics. Again, not going to do a super deep dive, but I do want to touch on some stuff. Sword of the Serpentine is a tabletop role-playing game. It supports 1 to 7 players. Boy, I hope this is focused enough. Looks like it is. Okay. It's a tabletop role-playing game. It supports 1 to 7 players with a sweet spot of 4 to 5, playing fantasy heroes inspired by sword and sorcery fiction. This is a game of investigation, heroism, sly politics, and bloody savagery set in a fantasy city rife with skullduggery and death. These rules adapt Pelgrane's Press's GUMSHOE system into a fantasy game with a relatively loose class structure and high action role-playing. We'll talk about that in a minute, but yeah, loose class structure is a understatement. I mean, to the point where I'm not exactly sure why they bothered with the quote-unquote classes. They're not really classes, but we'll talk about that in a minute. About the system. Oh boy, can you read that? All right. In Swords of the Serpentine, following swords and sorcery-style clues while role-playing your character propels you headlong into mysteries and adventure filled with danger and forbidden knowledge. A clue may let you find lost and sunken treasure, ancient jungle ruins, the lost key to a sorcerer's trap, or the identity of a charming murderer. Your characters learn and accomplish things in the game using abilities. There are 2 kinds of abilities: investigative abilities and general abilities. You have a rank in every ability, which gives you a pool of that many points to spend for extra benefits. Spending points from any ability pool never lowers that ability's rank. And they have to say this over and over again, so I'm thinking play testing, they must have just got a barrage of questions. So this is essentially, again, a nice picture of Eversink, a skill-based system. And you have 2 kinds of skills, like I said, investigatory skills and your general. So it's not like a typical one, right? So their basic resolution system is you roll a die 6 and meet or exceed a target, usually 4, but could be more or less. And that's it, right? What the skills do, you have a rank in them, which generally tells how competent you are in them. And as long as you have at least a rank of 1, there's something you're going to be able to do. The investigatory skills have a rank that automatically, if appropriate, will unlock a clue that in an area where a clue is to be found. So let's say, what is one of those skills? I think there's one called Leechcraft, which is all about medicine and cures and treating disease and such like that. If a clue in an area, say you've gone into a laboratory, right, and you're looking for evidence, and the evidence is what? A specimen in a jar of some weird lung that was rotted with disease or something. One of your characters playing has Leechcraft. Your game master is, say the clue is the lung, the disease of the lung is what you need to find in this area, in this scene, to move the investigation forward. So he's already got it documented. Okay, Leechcraft will find it, right? Got Leechcraft, you find it. The game master tells you about it, explains its importance. You ask them to role play a little using their Leechcraft, and you move on from there, right? Very unusual, very unique, and very smart, in my opinion. Then, usually, there'll be seeded additional information there. And this is where the Game Master can say, well, spend a point of Leechcraft to get more information, and then you'll give him that more information, right? It's usually you only spend like 1 point. Maybe, I don't know, there might be some extraordinary thing. I haven't actually run the game yet. I've only been reading the PDF. But usually it's just 1 point, right? And here's where that confused, I think, playtesters and why they mention it a million times in this rule book. I'm not even done reading this whole rule book on PDF, and I've seen it like half a dozen times. You have ranks in a skill. You also have a pool of points equal to that rank in a skill. If you spin that skill's pool down to 0, it doesn't make you dumb. You don't suddenly not have your ranks in that skill. So Leechcraft, say I had 1 point, I got the main clue, I spend 1 point from the Leechcraft pool to get additional information in the investigation area. That doesn't turn my Leechcraft into a 0. The pool is 0, but the rank is still 1. I still am competent using Leechcraft, right? And there are rules for how you get back that pool later on. Generally speaking, the investigatory skills, I think, regenerate, I want to say, only after the adventure is over. The general ability skills have a lot of ways to do it. So, generally, your general ability skills are all your action skills. So, Leechcraft is for, the lore of Leechcraft and investigating Leechcraft and the academic level of Leechcraft. You will have like a medicine skill, I don't think that's what it's called, but something which is your general ability that will be what you do if you need to take an action, right? So Leechcraft maybe is what says, that guy got stabbed in the kidney, but it's the general ability to try to save his life, right? That's a long way of saying there's 2 kinds of skills. One for investigation, one for taking action. All right, your hero. This is a cool picture. We got the Outlander, Barbarian, and some locals. And you see the contrast, right? Furs and leather, and it's all gray and brown versus a very colorful. There's a lot of Venice here. There's a lot of late medieval, I guess, Italy going on, and so it's a huge trade hub, and so foreigners are definitely coming in all the time. So you can make a foreigner like a barbarian if you want. There's stuff about framing the game. How did your heroes meet? They've got some suggestions like Big Damn Adventurers, so you knew each other already. Bookhounds of Eversink, you work for or run a bookshop. That's pretty cool. Cabals and covens, sorcery may be the next closest thing to illegal in Eversink, but that doesn't mean powerful and influential sorcerers don't have dealings there. Sorcery is a thing here. It's a taboo. It can cause a lot of problems, and we'll get into that in a minute. City Watch, that could be fun. That would definitely tie into investigations a lot. However, they have a problem that gets called out where, there's all these rich, powerful families. And so trying to do your job and investigate is actually a big challenge because they're also the ones with the power. So they don't want you investigating something that could create problems. Do-gooders, family business, freelance slinks. This is what they call private eyes, basically, in this game. So your Sherlock Holmesian types, I guess. Government agents. The government's really cool. We'll probably touch on that in a minute. Infidels. So, like religion but hate Denari, goddess of Eversink, make your adventuring team all worshippers or initiates of a tiny cult to a forgotten small god. So, the patron goddess of Eversink is Denari. She's the one who lifted the islands out of the sea and provides and is sort of their goddess of trade. she is the goddess of Eversink. Other gods really need not apply. So is that. You can be inquisitors for the Church of Denari, misbegotten soldiers, spider's web. Information is power. Power means wealth. And in Eversink, it's the information brokers and spies who know that best of all. Either you all work for an information broker, gathering rumors and blackmail material, or one of you is a broker and has to navigate a minefield. So that could be fun. You're in the spy business, or you're in the blackmail business. Thick as thieves. You belong to the Thieves Guild. We got our creating a character quick reference. So we're going to choose a profession. We're going to give some adjectives about our hero and drives. Assign investigative build points. Decide allegiances. Assign 30 general build points. Assign health and morale. Give yourself health and morale thresholds. Blah, blah, blah. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. Name yourself. There's a lot to do, but it's all really straightforward. There's a sample character sheet. It's almost looks like a White Wolf character sheet, huh? It's nothing like the White Wolf system. But it is cool. Character professions. This is what I want to talk about. So, 4 professions are common: Sentinel, Sorcerer, Thief, and Warrior. Professions are defined by the role you feel your hero plays. These are they're really more like archetypes, because you don't have to do any of the, you don't have to comply with a lot of different, what do we call it? Class strictures, like rules about your class or progression based on your class. They're really just like, hey, your character leans towards this, and you probably want to go with that. There's one tiny rule, which we'll get to, about professions that affects your character creation. So, as a Sentinel, you may be a Church Inquisitor, a member of the City Watch, an informer for Eversink Secret Police, a scout for smugglers, or an inspector for the Mercanti. So, a vigilant character, right? Someone who guards or protects people. Mercanti, by the way, is kind of their word for the nouveau riche, the wealthy new generation of merchants, as this contrast between them and the old money, right? Sort of almost like a Gothic Southern thing where you got the old money, and then these Mercanti come in and take advantage of the trade and get rich fast. Sorcerer. So, I guess this one's a pretty big deal. If you're a sorcerer, you're a sorcerer. As a sorcerer, you may know rare and hidden secrets, know how to heal the sick, or how to kill more quickly, be able to prophesy the future, and know the corrupt keys to sorcerer's power. Sorcery may take 100 different forms, but tapping into your true power is dangerous to your allies and deadly to Eversink. Deadly to Eversink's patron goddess. Powerful sorcery causes corruption, and corruption is illegal in Eversink. If you wish to avoid persecution, I can read, I swear. You may have to limit your power, keep your skills secret, or be so powerful and politically connected that few dare challenge you. So, there's sort of 2 degrees of magic, right? There's the less offensive, subtler magic, and then there's powerful sorceries. And those create corruption. And corruption either messes you up or messes the world around you up. And the idea is that corruption actually harms Denari, the goddess of Eversink. So practicing sorcery is a heresy, and it's outlawed because it literally can harm the goddess that created this place. Thief. There's like one little paragraph for the thief, which I think is hilarious. You specialize in secrets. Thieves may attack with word or blade, and they're equally treacherous with either. You probably know the alleys and canals of Eversink better than anyone else. I guess people see thief and they don't need a huge explanation. Now notice that it said may attack with word or blade. That's a big part of this game. You can attack people's health or their morale, and vice versa. They can attack your health or morale. So you could break someone with your sword, or you could break them with your words, which is really cool. The warrior. Very swashbucklery, in the literal sense, right? You wear a buckler and a sword, and it makes that noise when you walk. So that's supposedly where the term swashbuckler came from, and then it became pirates. Although this would be a great game to have pirates in. You're an expert at the art of warfare. As a warrior, you primarily make your way through the world by force of arms, whether you're a duelist, a brute mercenary, or a foreign barbarian. You're likely skilled at surviving in the wilderness, battling monsters, spotting your foe's weakness, and understanding deadly attack. There's some really cool monsters in this game, which we'll get to. Then you pick adjectives. So you pick this. It has almost no mechanical effect on your character creation. One little thing, which we'll talk about. But you get adjectives. Jot down some adjectives on the character sheet that encapsulate your hero's personality. This provides a fast reference for how you act when you face a difficult decision. It's particularly useful when building characters for one-shot games. And then you pick drives. The game is designed so that you can pick up a new character sheet and know everything you need to know about the hero, from their adjectives, their drives, and their gear. As a result, drives are a really handy way to summarize the things your hero holds most dear. So this is literally based, actually it says right here, once you know more about the character's personality, answer this question from the 1982 Conan movie, what 3 things are best in life? So those are your drives, and you can invoke them for a bonus, right? Once per adventure. So, Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, drive them before you, blah, blah, blah. Why am I blanking on that right now? Oh, that's total old school Phil that I can't remember that right now. Hear the lamentations of their women. Okay. So that idea doesn't have to be crazy like that, but you got 3 drives to guide your role play, basically, is what that's for. It's very cool. So we have our investigative abilities. You get points for those. I'm not going to go into all the nuts and bolts of that, how you parse that out, but let's just look at a few of them here. So there's that Leechcraft I mentioned. It's a profession skill for sorcerers, okay? This is the little rule. If you chose, say, the sorcerer character concept, I'm going to call it, all of your profession skills, there are different categories: social, profession. I guess they're all social or profession. If all of the profession ones you pick are from sorcerer, you get like a extra point buy bonus, and that's like it, really. But with sorcerer, you do need to know this corruption investigative ability, or to be able to use magic. There's also really cool this forgotten lore. Facts, legends, and trivia others have long forgotten. That's the basic idea, but it also has the ability to make protective wards for you or your companions, which is pretty cool. So they break them all down into the different descriptions. Let's look at Liar's Tell. Liar's Tell sounds cool. You can usually tell when you're being deliberately lied to and when people are trying to distract you from the truth. You may also be able to tell when someone is being sorcerously mind-controlled. Nearly everyone lies, and there are a lot of reasons someone might not be telling the truth. They give you sample spins, so you can, in addition to these being investigatory clue-finding abilities, they usually have a special ability that you can spin from the pool to use. So, sample spin. Gain great insight into why a person may be lying, even if it doesn't tell you what the truth actually is. Need to lie to someone and have it believed? Spinning a point of Liar's Tell makes it less likely other people question your lie because your body language and delivery are flawless. Unlikely information may still be questioned, but others won't believe it. So, if you have points in Liar's Tell, you're good at detecting lies, sussing out people's motives for their lies, but you're also good at telling lies, right? So I've got all kinds of more of these. I don't want to dwell on them too much. I will note that it's a beautiful presentation. I like the layout, the color schemes. Everything's clear. Going through the PDF earlier, it's well organized. Not a ton of art. It is a little old-fashioned in that realm. I feel like, there's some cool little embellishments, but not a ton. But the ones that are in there are nice. Some more scurrilously rumors, skullduggery. Warriors have things like no monstrosities, spot frailty. Those like open up a lot of bonuses in combat. Tactics of death, wilderness mastery. And then you pick allegiances. So you're going to pick, I think it's one or two, pending, factions that you have allegiances to, right? So we've got Ancient Nobility, the Church of Denari, City Watch, Commoners, Outlanders. So this gives you advantages when dealing with those factions and understanding of them, so it can also be an investigatory thing. And you also pick an enemy from those ranks as well. And then we got our general abilities. So those are the actions, right? It's general abilities represent taking actions in the game. When your character wants to do something, your GM will indicate what general ability you need to roll. Each rank and ability gives you 1 pool point. So again, you have a rank and that's a pool as well. So Warfare 4 gives you 4 pool points to spend. Your pool in an ability may rise and fall as you refresh and then spend points. The general abilities refresh much quicker. I haven't thoroughly read that part of the PDF yet, but I think a lot of times it may be after a scene or after defeating a foe, that kind of thing. Refresh tokens come out that people can take and use to juice their pools back up, which is good. So the investigatory skills are very limited and they get you through a scene, but may not be used again in that adventure. General abilities you use a lot, and so they have to refresh faster. Oh, here it is. Rewarding specialization. Every general ability, except for health and morale, has a talent, a feature that kicks in which the character has a rank of 8 or higher in the ability. So once you get to 8 or higher in a general ability, there's some cool trick that you unlock. So let's just look. Here's a list of them. Also, please note, there aren't a million skills, which I also appreciate, because in this game, it's zoomed out a little bit. We're not getting super gritty tactical, and warfare is for fighting. End of story, right? But let's just look at let's do warfare actually. So the basic description is use a weapon to attack someone's health, and this will be melee or ranged or improvised. But the talent is you may injure more than one target on a high attack roll. So a cleave, basically. So if you have an 8 or higher rank, again, it doesn't matter if you spent the pool points down, your rank is still 8. When you succeed on a hit, and there's a little threshold, I think it's rolling 3 over, you can then attack someone else nearby. Very cool. Incentive to pump up a skill, basically. So those are our generals. I will say about the art, there's an interesting, I think a lot of it is this sort of illustration, which is very, what do you call that? Clean and modern and almost comic booky in a way. I'm not complaining, but then there's some beautiful painting-like illustrations, and there's a contrast between those two things. But I get it. It can't all be those. Or they could, but that would be expensive. Actually, there's our barbarian again, fighting a bunch of swamp dwellers. Kind of cool. Let's talk about gear. So again, zoomed out. This game's zoomed out a little bit. They don't track coins. You have like a wealth stat, which if you really need to, you use. They have sort of a basic like, if you could get a hold of a basic primitive little knife, don't sweat it, just get a hold of a knife. But you list iconic gear on your character sheet, which is stuff that's always with you, and as useful as it is, it also says stuff about you. So they take it to the next level. It doesn't have to be just gear. Like, it doesn't have to be my family's sword, I carry it, blah, blah, blah. It can be allegiances in a way, or, things that link you to things. So let's see. You're encouraged to create items that hint at a fun story or plot hook, especially if they're not necessarily good for your hero. An example, such as wanted poster with my face on it and an insultingly low reward amount. So fun things that develop your character and create plot hooks are as important to this iconic gear as just I always have the sword with me. You can do both, and that's awesome, I think. Quick start character templates. These are, again, not classes or anything. This is just like, I want to be kind of an assassin guy. Okay, well, here's an example how you could build that out real quick. Useful. I would never use it, but I get why people want it. Then we go to the actual rules. So they're changing the color scheme for each section too, which I like. I kind of gave you an overview of this already. I'm not going to get super into it. I will say that in combat, you have warfare and you have sway. And sway would be for the morale attacks. Sorcerers, when they are defining their abilities, determine, is this ability allow me to attack people's health? Or does this ability allow me to attack their morale? And then from there forward, that's what that ability does. So you can spend points in the relevant skill, warfare, sway, or sorcery, to make your odds better. So your typical foe will have a threshold you have to hit on that 1d6 you roll. It's probably a 4, but it might be higher, it might be lower. There are mook rules, I think, but I haven't quite gotten to them yet. But you can spend the points from warfare, sway, or sorcery to add to your roll. And that, whatever you spend there, also dictates sort of a minimum damage you will do. Damage is rolled on a dice 6 as well. This game is all just roll a dice 6. It's super simplified, but in a good way. Mysteries, leads, and clues. So this is talking about passive leads versus active leads. Core leads. So basically the idea here is every scene has some core lead, and that's where if a character is investigating using the appropriate investigative skill or ability, that they will get that core lead in that scene, no problem. And then there'll be extra leads to be found by spending points. You can also use your investigative abilities to do cool tricks, or sometimes there's overlap with combat. Then you can spend points to get advantages. And this is just for explaining how to use your allegiances. You can also have favors, grudges, which are like temporary versions of allegiances and enemies. Here's a simple breakdown of tests. Again, the standard one is you need to hit a 4 or higher on a 6-sided. But it can go up to a 12, which is amazing. So that obviously a 12 would require a ton of spins from your skill point pools, right? To have a hope of doing that. Just kind of go through. There's full contests, so they have good rules for chases. I actually recently listened to an actual play where they did a chase through like underground catacombs of an old mansion, and it was fun. It was really cool. Races, running races, kind of thing. Well, that's something I didn't mention. As near as I can tell, you only play humans. There are lots of other creatures out there in the wilderness or below in the catacombs, that kind of thing, or in the ocean. But you're making humans. So here's our rules on combat. They have ranges, so it's not tactical. You're not counting movement squares or worried about flanking. It's descriptive. So you determine what range you're at from an opponent. You can move like a range band. So it's really kind of more like zones in a way. You can move in a range band and I think also attack thing. Initiative is fun. I'm looking forward to trying it out. It's called Popcorn Initiative, which I hate to sound ignorant, but I'd never encountered this before. So the idea is the GM will determine who goes first at the very beginning of a combat, right? And this could be a social combat as well. They will determine who goes first. So they might pick a bad guy or they might pick a good guy. It's going to be what's appropriate to the scene. And then that person, after they act, picks who goes next. So they could pick a bad guy or they could pick one of their fellows. So it could be tactical, right? It's like, oh, these guys aren't very tough. I think if we alpha strike them, we'll be okay. So I'm going to go, then I'll pick you to go, and then you pick him to go, and we'll all just bull rush these guys. Or it might be more of a tactical, like I'll go, we'll let one of them go, see what he does, and then go from there kind of thing. So attacks are real simple. Select a target within range, describe your attack, spend points from the relevant general ability if desired. So that's to enhance the roll. Roll dice 6 and attempt to meet or exceed your target's health or morale threshold. If successful, calculate damage. There are minor roll modifications by weapon type, but they're not real deep. It's not grognardy at all. That's kind of a cool picture. So there are a lot of supernatural baddies in this game. I know I've talked a lot about investigation, but usually they pepper that with threats from supernatural things, at least some of the time. Advanced attacks, so we've got critical hits. We've got attacking multiple foes. So they did give this some thought. I'm just going to say more thought than the basic GUMSHOE engine does, right? GUMSHOE is basically the core, and then like Cthulhu, Trails of Cthulhu, are way more about the investigation and the psychological aspects of it than they are about this. So they're like, well, we're making a fantasy game, it's got to be cool fighting stuff, right? So we got teamwork attacks, rules for attacking without abilities, ways to boost damage with investigative spin. So there's overlap there, but remember those are costly, right? Because they do not come back as fast as the generals do. This is a cool, very thematic image fighting a sword duel on a gondola. Very cool. A lot of stuff with canals and bridges and half sunken, lower levels of buildings and cool stuff like that. Rules for cover, blah, blah, blah. Grit. So you have 2 potential resistances in combat to damage. One is grit. There's one for sway attack. Oh no, sway is the grit one. I'm sorry. Is armor for combat or physical combat, and grit for social kind of attacks. So someone attacks you with sway. If you have a grit value, it's going to absorb some of that damage to your morale. There's a sorcerer. See, he's clearly find his roles, which is something you have to do. If you play a sorcerer, you have to describe what does your big bad spell look like? What are the aesthetics behind it? So this guy's clearly gone with like a water thing. We've seen him do that multiple times. Health. This game has sort of different tiers of health. And it's not too negative that things can be a problem. So you'll see here, health is 0 or better, you're healthy. 1 to 5, -1 to -5, you're hurt. This raises difficulties on general abilities. -6 to -10, you're seriously wounded. This also raises it, but creates other problems. And then defeated, below -10, you're broken, basically. If the enemies get the upper hand in that situation, you probably are dead, or it turns into this whole, like, other kind of adventure where you're prisoners, or one of you is a prisoner and the others have to rescue him, something like that. Rules for regaining health, of course. And then there's a whole section for morale, but really the morale situation, it's broken down almost as exactly as the physical combat, the real health damage type combat. There's lots of ways to bolster morale, so you can use your sway to try to prop up demoralized companions. They've got the basic general rules that every good game can have for situations. So we got blindness, disease. The diseases are awesome. I literally had to screenshot one of these and send it to the Upturn Table game group because I just thought it was hilarious. Throat leeches. Amongst the more disgusting of conditions, throat leeches are picked up when drinking infected water. Don't go gargling swamp water if you can avoid it. They're a truly horrible way to die. Throat leeches worsen or improve by 1 stage per day and are resisted by health, usually with a difficulty 6 health test. So the disease goes through stages, right? First stage, you have a slight tickle in your throat and your voice is hoarse. I got a little bug, guys. It's no big deal. Oh no, stage 5. A truly revolting number of throat leeches bursts out of your neck, killing you. Stage 4 is where it gets creepy. I mean, that was gross and creepy, but just generally creepy. Stage 4. Along with the symptoms of previous stages, you begin actively planning how to infect others with throat leeches, usually by getting them to drink liquid you have spit in. This desire isn't rational and can be resisted with a difficulty 4 morale test. So, it's a disease that literally turns into like an alien scenario. That's so cool. That's so creative. That's so much better than most games present things like this, if they present them at all. Rules for drowning, falling, fire, poison, venoms, heat and cold. All the ways to just damage or kill a player character. Poisons are cool because they basically see that Eversink. Here it is. If there's one thing the nobility of Eversink loves, it's their poisons. And the traditional method of solving problems has become a mainstay of Sinkish culture. If you need a poison, you can find someone to sell it to you. Buying the antidote, however, might be a little more challenging. So they don't break down poisons the same way they do the diseases. They encourage you to invent them, and they give you like effects and antidotes and onset times, so you can kind of cook up what this horrible poison will do. Rules about traps. This is kind of fun too. They kind of identify different purposes for traps. Traps that warn, stay out. Traps that say, die. And there's a lot of detail here. It was really fun to read this. Well, actually, there were like 4 pages just on traps. Really cool. More explanation of using the investigative abilities, which is really cool. Lots of tips for the game master. Trap notations. Oh, they do give you a couple examples of traps. Whirling blades of denial. Character growth, so rules about advancement. Rules about wealth. Again, like I said, wealth is not counting in coins, although they do have in the world book section a thing about currency, which is pretty amusing. So my idea, like, obviously you want to build these characters in a session 0 where we all know where everyone's coming from, and you're all giving ideas for factions and enemies and problems that you guys have and origins of things you guys have. I'm pretty sure I'm going to run, the first time I run this, I'm going to, hopefully the players are okay with this, but I'm going to want to run lesser members of an old wealthy family, right? So they get all that politics stuff, but they have to scrape for their own positions, which I think will be fun. Big sorcery and corruption. We got a quick reference here. Tells you how to build out your powers. This is pretty complicated. This game has a lot of cool stuff that's almost more story and narrative than actual mechanical rules, so how you describe your spells, there could be runes, wards, protective things that you encounter, but it's not defined. It's not everything has to work this way, which I really like. This is pretty cool. I think this sorcerer just de-aged a couple guards into babies. That is rad. That is rad, and I'm guessing is a super corruption-inducing ability. So we have different spheres that sorcerer would be picking from. Whole lot of detail. I'm not gonna go into it, but suffice to say, they provide you a lot of information. Actually, I might look at this part. How corruption works. Corruption spins are more powerful than other investigative spins and produce superior sorcery effects. So again, remember that's an investigative ability, but it has a pool of points. I can talk. That you can spin to enhance things, right? Specifically enhancing sorcery. They open you to the foul, unclean source of magic that lies behind sorcery and the risk that accompanies this power, corrupting either your own flesh or the world around you. Spend pool points of corruption to trigger exceptional damage, trigger target area damage, create non-standard unique spells, create maneuvers that aren't covered by an ability you already possess, level a curse at a foe, create sorcerer's glyphs and traps. So these are all the different cool things you can do. So like corruption spin to 1 point could do 3 damage. Could add a die plus 3 damage. Let's see. Just different stuff there. So what happens when you spin corruption? Internalize corruption. You choose to contain the corruption within your own body. When you spin 1 or more points of corruption, make an immediate health test with a difficulty 3 plus 1 per point of corruption spent. If you succeed at the health test, choose and write down on your character sheet one small thing that has changed on your body. These changes: a toenail falls off, a wart appears. So you can try to internalize the corruption you're bringing into the world, and it has narrative effects on your character. Externalize corruption. If you don't internalize corruption, it leaves you untouched but affects the world around you. In the short term, this terrifies your allies. In the long term, it spiritually scars the area around you, causing sickness and insanity in the population. So, sorcerers casting powerful spells and refusing to internalize them are literally kind of plaguing the world, cursing the world. Really kind of dig that. Crazy evil witch lady messing people up. And we've got advanced sorcery, so we've got things like rituals, true names. And that's even, I think, a mark on your character sheet is whether people know your true name or you know your true name. Curses, sorcerer's glyphs and traps. All right, and then there's a chapter on wealth and lifestyle. So you can do the traditional loot finding adventure, right? But you're not counting coins. That's not part of the deal. When you adventure, you'll gain wealth. You'll spend wealth on your lifestyle every adventure, as noted below. Unspent wealth carries over from adventure to adventure. Really cool. So it's kind of like in the downtime, how did you live? Did you live large? Okay, you're going to spend this much wealth. No, you counted all your pennies and, ate stew every day. Okay, well, you only spend this much wealth. Kind of. Very cool. That kind of thing always reminds me of the scene in the original Conan the Barbarian film where it's like they successfully completed their first mission before all the Thulsa Doom stuff, and they're just in a bar with all their money, getting drunk off their asses. And there's been a few games I've played where it's like you lose your money at the end of every or before the next adventure every time because you just blow it, and that's why you're adventuring is because you need more money to blow. So lifestyle here. Again, here's this barbarian sitting outside in the rain, or maybe she's got her hair did and she's having a nice chalice of wine and she's inside being comfortable. Very cool. Gear, both sorcerous and mundane. So rules about how much you can carry. Here's our weapons chart. No fantasy game complete without. So they have mild modifiers. I would say more in line with sort of like a Forbidden Lands level of modifier. It's not super granular. But you have things like a club heavy has a +1 damage modifier, and it's obvious, so you can't really hide that, or it's nearly impossible to hide. Or a spear is large. It's obvious as well, but it's also armor piercing 1, so it cancels 1 point of armor. Stuff like that. They have rules for firearms. The basic game does not assume firearms exist or are used, but they gave you some rules in case you want to go that way. And they got cool, much more story-based stuff, right? So you've got like Alchemist's Fire, Badge of Office, Sestinio's cameos. These are a collection of several dozen antique cameos whose display conveys sentiments ranging from bland disinterest to mild contempt to scathing insult. Used properly, Sestinio's cameos can create the effect of a taunt or intimidate spend. So these are things that can be used in place of a skill spend, right? There's a lot of stuff in this game. Tech-wise, I guess it's late medieval, but feel-wise, I feel like it's kind of early to middle Renaissance, you know? It's just wonderful, luxurious, but also terribly corrupt Italian feel to it all. It's wonderful. You got your bucklers. Gotta have a buckler if you're gonna carry a dueling sword, right? Got armor. Armor just soaks damage in this game. Watch whistles, shields. Regular shields actually can make it harder to hit you. Bucklers actually work with like the dodge talent, so they're more about helping you parry and avoid damage. Whereas a shield just a flat, it's harder to hit you because you have a freaking shield. Poisons, toxins, and venoms. Sorcerous gear. Not going to get too deep into any of these. There's some nice little illustrations. Swan. By the way, there's a swan over a gold pool, or maybe it's a gold coin, is sort of the standard symbol of the city and of the goddess. So we got some kind of magical items going on here. Adversaries. So rules about bad guys. So now we're getting into the GM helper section, how to make your bad guys, how to give them special abilities. Look at this guy right here. And there's just some wonderful... Of course, you can leave Eversink and go on a proper adventure, but there's just wonderful things like maybe the ancient hierarch of that family you hate actually was a lich, and nobody knows, and he's deep below their mansion, puppeteering the actions of his family and their allies. You know, you can do cool stuff like that. Special abilities for the baddies. There's a lot of this is very fleshed out, a lot of extensive information. Then we got generic, go-tos. A sniveling lackey who is gossipy and servile. It gives you all their stats for defending and attacking. Divine Prophet. That sounds like bad news for most player characters. Oh shit, Divine Prophet, we're in trouble. Soldier of Faith, Church Militant. So Templary kind of person. Watch Officer. I think there's a lot of fun to be had with the Watch. They're so screwed. They're trying to preserve the peace and solve crime, but these families are just constantly messing with shit. Diseased Beggar. Ooh. Rich Merchant. The Mercanti. I really like that dichotomy, too, of the old wealth, the old money families who are scrapping to stay control of their holdings, and live the lifestyle they've lived for generations, versus these mercanti, these nouveau riche, who are maybe a little more flashy and garish in their liveries and lifestyles, and very upstarty and meddling in things that old families think they shouldn't be meddling with. Raging Barbarian. Then I'll show you, there is like a world map, kind of, or a partial world map we'll get to. So there's lots of opportunities to play adventures other places, or what I think is more interesting is have people from there come into Eversink and either intentionally with a purpose or descending into the corruption of Eversink. We get into weird monstery kind of things. Buzzing acolytes. So these guys worship a fly demon, Yuluk. Acolytes of Yuluk are worshippers of a fly demon who have been blessed with its power. So they fly people. These chuggets are these weird, like, primitive swamp savages. Creepy ass drowned. The faceless are awesome. They literally rip people's faces off and put them on and take their place. The person who's had their face ripped off I think it said it goes into kind of a coma state, and they look like this. They have nothing but 2 nostril slits, and they're just stuck there breathing until they get their face back. Crazy creepy. Ghosts, carnivorous seabirds, hollowed. The hollowed are priests of Denari whose face has been hollowed out, quite literally, and ripped away by multiple sorcerers, turning the priests into a hollow and murderous mockery of what they stood for in life. So there is a lot of heresy, and there's actively factions of priests of other gods or cultists or sorcerers who want to harm Denari and the followers of Denari, which is kind of cool. Look at that. Ugh. Serpent folk. The Serpentine. Hey, it's like on the title of the book. Ancient beyond measure, sorcerers, the true masters of humanity. These are like the first folk, I think, is kind of the idea. Like before men, there were serpent folk. Serpent folk lived in, oh boy, Narissa Menitilical. Here in the delta of the great river Serpentine for thousands of years before humanity first fled down the river and tried to cross the mud, the serpent people built unnatural temples within the bog, raised idols to their demonic gods, and, in conjunction with the great Serpentine Empire upriver, tore the rules of sorcery from the starlight above. Most have departed by the time that Eversink was founded, and Denari drove many of the remaining serpent folk far away. So they're kind of Naga-looking folks. So I think the idea is that they're there behind the scenes. There's plenty of opportunity for adventures where you investigate old, ancient tombs of the Serpentine and stuff like that. Shadow demons. And a lot of baddies. Winged ape. Totally rad. Creepy little vampire kid, of course. Zombies. That's awesome. He's got like a seagull living in his torso. Very cool. GM advice. So we had all this detail in this section, and that wasn't even technically the GM advice stuff. So we got, they got a little thing about safety and X cards. That's just standard anymore. Setting the tone for sword and sorcery. Look at that. That's awesome. This is going to put lots of potential for seaborne adventures, obviously, because you're living on islands in a trading hub. So, hey, bring on the Kraken. Players help build the world. This is huge. This is session 0 of this game. If you play it, get input from the other players. Character construction. So just little tips on how to help with like analysis paralysis and gear. The gear idea is a little going to be foreign to some players because it's not all physical things. So that's cool. Rules about mooks. Monsters, named foes, single foes, high grit and armor. There's a lot of tips. What do we got going here? Oh. Looks like a priest and some crossbow-armed guards watching a hammer-wielding maniac and a dagger-wielding thief fight on a small platform suspended by chains over, I'm going to say, lava. Yes. Life goals. Using enemy grudges and low repute points. So yeah, just mystery leads. This is a very important section talking about constructing your adventure and how to handle the leads and the clues. So they've actually formatted this. It looks like an old school dungeon map, but it's really just like, here's how you navigate the clues and move from scene to scene. So this will be pretty linear. I think you could, well, not linear, but pre-planned. Let's call it that. I think you could do this off the cuff. You could totally do this off the cuff, but it'd be hard. You'd have to be ready for stuff and not sound stupid when you're trying to come up with a clue or something. Lots of stuff about heroes. I'm skipping ahead here, sorry. The city of Eversink. Alright, so this is where we play, for the most part. The city and the goddess are one. Except when she takes on human form once a year, the buildings and islands of Eversink are the body of the goddess Denari herself. You literally live inside the goddess. As the patron of commerce and civilization, Denari blesses the trade that occurs within her borders. Every coin exchange is a prayer, and every transaction is sacrament. So they weave this goddess into it, and they've just told you, yeah, she's a real thing. It's not hypothetical. It's not maybe you believe in her, maybe you don't. Even if you don't worship her, you know she's a real thing, and you know her followers can have power. Here we are going into probably a temple. Swans everywhere. That's another thing. Statues are huge. You die, you get a statue built. Statues are everywhere in Eversink. Some sorcerers animate them. Cool picture of a hill in Eversink. We're talking about architecture, roads and canals and bridges, sports, languages, food. So great background stuff. Super great background. History, Eversink's history. Now we got the districts. There's our awesome map again. They give you plot hook ideas based on districts. Also super cool. That was another cool painting. Yeah, so we're just going through all the districts here, which is real important. I probably would do my first mystery in 1 or 2 districts just so I have good control over or sense of what's going on. And of course, I'm just sort of flipping through now, babbling, because I'm not going to read all their content. You should buy their book or at least buy the PDF. I will say one thing, Pelgrane Press, please consider giving the PDF with the basic book purchase. They sell the book, or they sell the PDF, or they sell the book and the PDF. Most game companies, not counting the Dragon Game people, are giving you the PDF when you purchase a book. They're not raising the price and turning it into a bundle. So I'm a little down on that part, Pelgrane Press. I know you worked hard on this book. It's beautiful. Don't think you should do that. Just my personal opinion. So, lots more world detail here. Mercenaries, monstrosities, outlanders. There's a ton in here. I'm going to skip ahead a little. I'm going to try to find you the world. Here we go. Here's the world. So, Eversink is right here. See, there's the Serpentine River that feeds into the ocean, and Eversink is on the islands at the end of that river. It's called the Bay of Coins. So we've got all these different countries here. That barbarian, I think, is coming from the kingdom of Yulev, possibly. So that's pretty cool. It's a cool little map. They give you just enough detail that you could adventure there, or more importantly, you could make characters who came from there, I think might be the better way to go, at least at first, into your old hands with this game. There's so much about Eversink, and this is so weaved into everything, the world of Eversink, that I just think it would be a big mistake to immediately leave and go gallivanting around the world and not enjoy all the politics and the grit and the grime and the corruption of Eversink. Chapter 11 is an introductory adventure. Thank you very much, Pelgrane Pass, for giving us one in the book. I'm not going to read it because, yeah, buy the book, play the game. I will post a picture. Ooh, that's creepy as heck. Then we've got appendices, wonderful quick reference stuff, and then a giant index. And then the other end of that painting, beautiful watercolor, the map again. Love it. They didn't seem to have on the website a way to buy this map in like a larger map form, but I would really like that if you're listening, Pelgrane. All right, guys. That is my quick little leaf through Swords of the Serpentine. I'm really looking forward to running this. I definitely want to run it for the guys on the channel. We're going to do a Dragonbane thing right now, and I don't really want a fantasy on fantasy, so somewhere later out, maybe in the next couple months, we'll try to get this going. Looking forward to it. Anyway, that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed this. Encourage you to at least check out the PDF. It looks really cool. So thanks very much, and we'll talk to you next time.